Welcome to Property Deconstructed with Mark Errichiello from Master Advocates, and I'm Pat Panetta. We're back for another episode, Mark.
We're back, yeah. Good to see you again. And, springtime, sun's out. So
that's right.
Fantastic. Great to be here, Pat.
Yeah, spring selling season.
Yes.
Go. Now, we've got a special guest in the studio. So the whole idea of this podcast and also this sort of video cast is to invite experts in the property field to sort of share knowledge and pass it on to our viewers and listeners, Mark. So we've got Michael Furlong in the studio. So tell us more about Michael.
Yeah, Michael, I've known Michael for many years. So he's a friend and an associate in the industry, a licensed real estate agent and agency property management or expert, you could say, but he's a property management and agency consulting and training. So Rent Roll Maximiser is the company which Michael founded and is a director of. But yeah, thanks for coming, Michael. And yeah, it'd be great if you can expand on that a little bit more about what you do as a specialty.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thanks, Mark and Pat. I like the word expert. That's nice. Let's get off to a good start. So the aim of my business, Rent Roll Maximiser, is really to work with sales-based real estate agency principals to help them build and to grow their rent roll. So most real estate agents, what I see is most real estate agents owners are sales-based. They don't necessarily understand the property management side of things. So that was me back in 2010, 11, 12. And when I sold the business, I sold my rent roll, it was really to set up a consultancy business specifically for sales-based principals that didn't really understand their property management side of the business. And it's really evolved from there, from training, speaking, systems, and it's really evolved in the last 8 years.
So property management, is that sort of not high in the pecking order? So you're more about buying and selling, and then property management might be something which is a bit of an afterthought?
Easy.
I don't know.
It's funny you say that, because
that's what the world thinks.
Yeah, and that would have been, in some ways, agency principals in the past method of thinking. They were well aware that it was a backbone of the finance of the business if it was substantial and well managed, but a lot, I guess, didn't value it enough or didn't put enough effort into the training and practice of it. And if it's run well, and I've witnessed Michael's systems firsthand and training and very, very diligent, methodical and good systems, good practice. And it's not just for agency principals. If it, I don't know how to pronounce it. There's an Italian saying where the fish rots from the head. If it's well managed at the top, then that flows through. And there's a benefit to the property management's, rental management career as well.
Yeah.
I think really where it changed, Pat, was through COVID. And that's when a lot of principals realised that their sales had diminished completely, and they realised that the only asset that they had was the rent roll, and they probably didn't understand it. So as much as I know it was a bit of tongue in cheek, it's actually.
I'm here to ask the questions.
No, it's good because it's exactly the way in which most sales-based principals or the industry really sees property management. It's the ugly side of the business, which is usually put in an office down the end, down the back, down near the toilets, near the kitchen. Yeah. And I think now that's changed where a lot more intuitive, smarter, switched-on principals realise that this is the side of the business that's going to help grow my business. Yeah. And very few sales agents have a good super. That is their super, their rent roll.
Right.
Yeah.
So define rent roll for me. It's just basically all the properties you have that are being rented from week to week and the income coming from that. Yeah. And the way you manage that and, as you say, grow it.
Correctly.
Yeah. Well explained in a sense. But
Michael, absolutely. But even deeper to that, it actually has an asset value. So there's a multiplying effect to the property management. And I'll use it simply. Let's just say that your management fees for the year, just management fees, remove GST, is $1,000. And then you wanted to sell that asset and you had a multiplier of 3, then that's worth $3,000 to another real estate agent.
Right.
So it actually has a value, irrespective of the sales commission. It actually has an asset value. Yep. And so when you're looking at a balance sheet on a real estate agency, it's only the rent roll.
Okay.
Yeah, and not just agencies that are looking to have an exit plan, but it should always be in mind. But even while you're building the asset, it's great for relationship management, closer touch points with your clients, the investors, that when they're looking at selling or buying more investment properties, it all compounds. And financing, if they're looking at investing in other avenues through the business, that's pretty much the only area that the banks will look at in an agency, unless there's some really strong goodwill behind the brand and strong commission consistency.
So it's important.
Absolutely.
It's everything. Well, it's the financial sort of core of the business.
It's the crux of the business. It's the recurring income.
Yeah.
So, and sadly in Australia, and I don't understand why this is the case, but we only really look at the management fee income, not all the ancillary fee income. So the objective and what I do is I work with real estate agents to make sure that if they're going to sell, and I use that $3,000, if they're going to sell that rent roll or that actual asset, that they get paid for it. Because often that doesn't happen. You might sell 300 properties and only get paid for 200 because the others aren't compliant or they're not of good value.
Yeah, no, that's some really. There is a lot of, I guess, vertical benefits too. Because if you might even expand and bring in good partners, good team members that you want to retain, and if that property management rent roll is getting valued when you're bringing in shareholders, if it's well oiled, well managed, and even. Some rent rolls, we mentioned looking at the multiple effect of 3. If it's great properties, great location, well managed, and everything's set up, even the fees and the processes, and that's where Michael specialises to structure it all, those systems, then it could be even worth a higher multiple. There could be some competition.
I only use 3 for my maths.
No, and explaining it as well.
The multiple should be more than that.
Well, it's the average. It is the average.
Okay.
3.5 is a good multiple, and I'm working on 2 at the moment where they're both at 3.5. So I work. I guess I work for the buyer. I also work for the seller, depending on who's engaging me. So I'm working on 2 situations at the moment where clients are looking to buy rent rolls.
I see.
And so what they're looking for there, Pat, is to make sure that if they're going to pay $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, that they're actually getting that value in. So they bring somebody like myself in to come in and analyse and assess the portfolio.
The compliance. Is the biggest thing. If the files are actually compliant to be able to sell the shareholdings or the asset, and then can bring in rent roll brokers and negotiate that as well. But if it's prepared well, that's everything. That's the foundation.
Absolutely.
So can I come and buy a rent roll from you?
You can't.
No, sorry, engage your service to go and purchase a rent roll, I mean.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, just me? I don't have to be a real estate agent?
Yes, no, you do.
Put it in the license of the company of a licensed agent, yes.
Right, okay.
But you could be a shareholder of an agency,
right.
It depends how they're structured.
Yeah, I'm an agent, Mark, so just hang on for a second. So are you looking to buy, Pat? I'm never going to let an optionality go.
Yeah, that's right. See, he's going to hand me his card soon.
Yeah, well, Michael would definitely be able to analyse analyse it for the health of the actual business in the rent roll, and also the compliance side. That's like doing an audit before you assess anything. The due diligence.
Due diligence, yeah. And because we're so heavily regulated, the industry is really regulated. However, not everyone, and it's a self-regulated environment. So what happens is client A wants to sell their rent roll, and then client B wants to buy it. Client A is saying it's great. Client B wants to pay for something which is great. So the in-between is where I would come in. And it's not the only part of the business, but I would come in and I'd actually have a look at that and say, is that of value or is it compliant? So finding really good rent rolls or finding a good property management business is very difficult in Victoria at the moment. It's very difficult because there's a lot of people out there that aren't doing things right. Right. Which is why we have
Is there more rules here though? It's harder to do it right here in Victoria?
Regulated.
There's a lot more rules, but it's easier to get away with things. And this is why we have such a big issue and why real estate agents, sadly, are still put down on the bottom of the trust factor for roles and industries. And it's why we struggle to get kids to come into the industries, because there's such a negative connotation around real estate agents because there's too many cowboys that aren't doing the right thing. So I'm on the side of let's do things right. Let's work in, and I use the phrase agency best practice.
Yes.
So if we can put that into a business, it'll keep consumer affairs away, it'll keep the complaints away, and it'll also make sure that you actually have a really good asset value. You'll attract better staff, you'll retain better staff, you'll get better clients. It isn't a difficult process, but too many people, they don't want to invest, they don't want to put the time and effort in, because there is time and effort in.
I was just going to say, too hard basket sometimes. Once you've presented, if you've analysed the things that need fixing, that could just freak people out if they're not prepared, or I guess they haven't got the experience to tackle it.
Although I run with the 90, 120 day projects, so to completely change a rent roll or the way a business is running, I've got that down pat now. I've been consulting for 8 years, and it's a cookie cutter approach. And I walk into the business. Interestingly enough, when I first started, I thought every business needed to be uniquely different. It doesn't. Now I just walk in and say, here is a cookie cutter approach which works. It's systemised. Yeah. I don't use the franchise or the McDonald's side of things, but it is very systemised. And I walk in and say, this is the way to get things working really well. And I've been running that. And I would normally work in 3 to 4 offices at a given time. I'm in 5 at the moment, 5 different real estate offices, all varying sizes.
Now we should pass on some advice. So we're talking, our main audience for this podcast are other real estate agents who are running a rent roll, thinking about improving their rent roll. So let's pass on some nuggets to them.
Yeah, in particular with Michael's expertise and services, yes, definitely. But also it's good for rental providers, the landlords, or the term now rental providers, to be aware that they should be questioning if their agency is doing the right thing and find the right one.
Good
but
point.
Michael, yeah, definitely. I guess what's the most common issues that you find when you go into an agency, and then your methods where you said cookie cutter approach, but the systems that you'll deliver and spend time on to bring solutions.
Can I just go back to the one with the rental providers, because that's really important. The easiest way, and I say this with a lot of clients as well, is just go back to Google. Have a look at your Google reviews. If you've got a really good, strong Google review approach, particularly from renters, from tenants, renters. If you've got a lot of renters that are giving good Google reviews, that's a good agency to go with. So when you're selecting an agency to manage your property, go straight to the Google reviews.
How about the guy that stands over me and says, "Can you write a Google review for me?"
If you've got 5 Google reviews and they're all 5 stars, then you're in trouble. But if you've got 1,000,
you can
Google
tell the
reviews,
genuine ones.
You can just work through them.
And that's a great point, because a lot of people go straight to their direct client, the rental provider or the seller, and say, "Can you provide a a Google review if you're happy?" But not as many will go to the tenants.
It's one of those things that I focus on a lot. Is let's try and put in steps and trigger points where the renter. I've got to get out of the habit of saying tenants, but the tenants. For everyone outside of
what
Victoria,
are they called now?
Renters.
Oh, renters.
Yeah, well, we've got a government that wanted to spend a lot of money on making changes. So they changed
some of the
landlords to rental providers
and
tenants to renters. That's why we have a government.
That's right.
Well, it's ingrained. It's ingrained in our subconscious to say tenants.
We haven't got more houses for people to live in.
No,
but we've changed.
They've had about 300 meetings to work that out.
2 years consultation.
2 years.
So to go back to Mark, what I do, I actually, as I said, I have a process. It's a 90-day process where I'll firstly start off with a health check, and that's, there's a lot of people that will do a health check on a rent roll and they'll or a business, and they'll do it in a day. Mine's 2 weeks, so I spend 2 weeks embedded into the office and go in and really analyse, pull out all the data, and then I use my analytical approach to strip out what's working really well, keep it. What needs to be improved, we modify it. What needs to be dumped, we get rid of that real quick, and then we put in some new systems. So it isn't that difficult, but it's time and money.
Yeah. No, that's great, and I think it's and as I said, I've dealt with Michael over the years. We've crossed paths a few times in different associations, and
in a nice way,
in a great way, and cross paths in a good way, and even from the analytical side and seeing what he does in a rent roll. Like when we've ever looked at buying or selling rent rolls as well, I've even been on the side where he was a very fair operator. He was working for the actual seller of a rent roll, and the actual details and analytics behind all the compliance and everything that had been checked off was fantastic, very easy. I guess like when you're buying a property, if there's a Section 32 or contract of sale, and there's disclosures around building inspection reports and defects and things that need monitoring, things that need fixing. It was
very thorough.
It was all there. You didn't have to dig too deep.
I'll simplify this, Mark. It's exactly the same as everyone can understand. This is the way that I look at it. If I was going to sell a house, would I sell it with a bad garden, cracks, poor carpet, kitchen has not been renovated, or would I go in and I fix it all up? So my job is I'm the person who goes into the rent roll to fix it all up before you sell. So sadly, a lot of real estate agents sell when they have to instead of selling when they need to. And that might be through partnership disputes or through ill health. Ill health's a big one, financial issues. And we're seeing a lot of real estate agents that are struggling when you've got 12 consecutive interest rate rises, that owners are looking to get out. And so they're really struggling at the moment.
Yeah. And that's, I guess, if you always stay ready, you never have to get ready. You choose the best time for you.
It's absolutely. And that's the approach, is to get the business ready. Sale ready. So if it's sale ready, so you have the choice when you want to, you can pull the trigger, as opposed to somebody else coming in.
And it's well managed in the meantime. It's better managed.
Better staff retention, better client retention, less headaches.
Michael Furlong is the director of Rent Roll Maximiser. This is Property Deconstructed with Mark Errichiello and Pat Panetta. Michael's going to tell us the number one thing that people do badly when he goes into a business and looks at their rent roll, and we come back in the next episode. Do you like that?
That'll be great. Yeah, if you can stay on for another episode, there's plenty to unpack with you. So it'd be great.
I'm happy. I've got to narrow down 100 to 1.
But do you want 3?
No.
Top 3?
I can tell you the one. I can tell you the one thing.
Okay.
All right. Property Deconstructed with Pat and Mark and Michael Furlong to give us that piece of information and more in the next episode here at Property Deconstructed.